Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're going to code this type of modern website using only our HTML and CSS. You can code this website only by watching my full web dev course video, which I'm going to give the link in the description. Let's get started and code this website. So first, I'm going to open my code editor, and let's say here we have folder of modern website. And here, if I add this to my code editor, we can start coding our website. First thing that we need to have is, of course, our index.html file. And here, if I use this exclamation mark, we can get this thing autofill. And we're going to need another style.css for our CSS code. So now let's hide our left bar and bottom bar right here. Here we need to define the title of our website. Let's say this is Code Learn Website. And let's add our CSS to our HTML. And let's open this with our live server. And I'm gonna move this to my other workspace. And make this full screen. So if I write hello world, you can see that we can have this right here. Now let's start with our navigation. Here we're going to use our nav tag to contain all of other elements. First, we need to have img tag for our logo. And I'm going to import all of the assets that we need to have to my file right here. And I'm gonna give the GitHub link that you can have all of these things to practice and code all along with me. So here in the source, we're going to select our assets folder. And then here it is our logo.png. And here we're going to type our code learn logo. Then after this, we're going to have our anchor tags, which defines our menu items. First one is our home, of course. Then let's say we have our about page and then our contact page. And the URL for this is about.html, which we haven't created yet. And for this is contact.html. And here you can see our items right here. And why these are right here and not in the top? Because we have our logo, which is in the large size here. So let's fix this by giving this simple width of maybe 50 pixels. So now you can see we have all of our items right here. And let's create our other page template right now. We're not going to design all of it, but I'm going to show you how we can create and navigate to that. So here we're going to add another folder called pages. And inside of that, we're going to have our about.html and then our contact.html. And in both of these, we're going to give only the name of what page this is. For example, this is our contact page, and this one is our about page. Now you can see if I click on about, we're going to have this error, and that's because here we haven't defined this folder. So here we're going to use our page, then inside this our about, and the same thing for this one too. And you can see now here, if I type on about, you can see we're going to move to our about page. And if I click on contact, we're going to go to our contact page. And home is, of course, the page that we are here. So now let's design our navbar. Let's go to our CSS, and here first I'm gonna create our variables of our colors that we're going to use through this website. So I'm gonna define root right here, and here let's say we have our base color, which is 0 to 0018. Then we're going to have our base gradient, which is 0 to 001 BC3. And then after this, we're going to have our light text, which is going to be simple white color right here. Then of course, we're going to have our dark text, which is this color. And at the last, we're going to have this fade variable, which is 8A 8989. Okay, now we set our variables. Let's clear our margin in all of our website so we can have all of the things in the base and zero position. And let's say we're going to use our font family of Arial. And because we want all of the text of our websites to be in the base white color, so we're going to define all of the color to be light text right here. Now let's select our body, and here we're going to give this background, which is our base color right here. And then let's select our nav tag, and inside of this, let's see actually that worked. Yes, here we have our things working. Here in the nav, let's say we're going to have some linear grading from top to the bottom, so we have some things in background behind our nav items. So we're going to use our background, and here of course we're going to use our linear gradient. Let's say we want this to be from top to the bottom, and let's say we want this black 50% and transparent in the end. And if I change this color for a moment, you can see that we have our gradient working. So let's move on, and here let's say we give this a width of 30%, and we want this to be displayed in the flex. So we align the items in the center and justify content, and let's use our space around right here. And let's say we're going to have some paddings right here. I think 20 pixel and 35% for the size should be okay. Let's see how it turned out. Yes, this is good. But another thing that our nav should have is the ability to show all along our websites in the top of other things. So here we're going to use our position and make this to be positioned fixed. And we use the Z index and bring this to the front. And here if we have anything that is going to be behind our navbar. Another thing that here we need to do is to remove that lines under our anchor tags and set our font size. So I'm gonna select all of the childs of our nav element, and let's say we want text decoration to be none, so we get rid of that line. And let's say we want the font size to be 1.5 rem. And here you see how we got this. And if I zoom this to the normal, you can see this is going to be good. So after this, let's go and start coding our first section, which I'm going to use this section tag right here with the class name of section-1. And here let's select our section-1 and give this some background image, which we're going to use this URL method. And here mine is in assets and bg.image. JPG. And now let's make the background attachment to be fixed, background size to be cover. Let's say we want our width to be 100% and our height. Let's use our calc function right here because we want to have our 16:9 aspect ratio. So we're going to use our calc right here, and we're going to get all of the view width that we have, multiply it by 9 and divide it by 16. So in this case, we're going to have the exact 16:9 aspect ratio dynamically in our web page. And if I now come to our web page, you see now we have this image coming right here just as we want. And let's actually give some margin bottom here, let's say 200 pixels, so we can move a little down so we can test our fix of attachment in our background. But let's say we want to have some hover gradient on our image. So what we can do is we can create another element after our element right here, or we can use our pseudo element and classes to define that thing, which I'm going to show you how we're going to do this thing by our pseudos. So we're going to select our section 1 before, and here we're going to have our content in the first place, which in our case, let's say it's learn programming and coding. Then here we're going to make the position of that to be absolute. And let's make the position to the top 0 and left 0 either. After this, let's give this a width of 100% and a height as we give in the top. We're going to use our calc function, get our full view width, multiply it by 9 and divide it by 16. And in the background of this, we're going to use our linear gradient again. For direction, we want this to be to the bottom again. And for the colors, first one that we have is our base gradient, which we have defined in the top root. And we want this to be 10%. After this, let's say we have another one of some very transparent kind of black, maybe 58% is good. And we want this to be 60%. And after this, we're going to have, actually, I need to have this here, not there. Okay. And after this one, we're going to have another of our variables, which is our base gradient again. And I need to remove this because we have the same thing coming right here. And now we should have our background on top of our image. Now you see how it has changed and have this scrolling type of effect on our image. And for our text, let's actually use our flex box to make that to be in the center. So we use our display mode of flex right here. We use our align items to be center, and then our justify content to be center again. And let's make our font to be bold. So we use our font weight and make this bold. And here you can see we have this kind of overlay on top of our image, and this text which is going to scroll by our scrolling on our image. And we can change the font size to, let's say, make this 35 pixels. Yes, this is good. And now let's move on and go to our second part. So here, because we're going to have some info type of things, we're going to have our section with the class name of info container. And inside of this, let's say we have simple paragraph right here, which contains 50 words. And after this, we're going to have some image beside that. And the image that I choose to use here is my laptop image. And this is going to be laptop image 2. And now if I check, you see that we have our text and our image in our design. And now let's start that. So here, let's first select our info container right here. Let's say we want to have some padding all along our info section. So here, let's say we want 100 pixels for the top and the bottom and 20% for the sides. And let's use our flex box here again, so we can use our justify content and make the space around here. And we want to align our items to be in the center of our section. So we can have this kind of thing going on here. And let's fix the sizing a little bit. So here, I'm gonna select all of the childs of our info container with our global selection of star, and let's give this width of 400 pixels, for example, and let's make our font size to be larger. And if I check, now it's better looking. And let's go to our next part, which in this part, we're going to have some animation type of divider with our programming language. So we need to come to our index.html first and create our section, which is going to be our name line. So here I'm going to create another section with the class name of name-line. And here we need to have our, which can take some while, but you can go to the GitHub repository link that I'm going to give to you in the description, and you can copy the items from there. So here we're going to have a bunch of names inside our paragraph tags. And after typing this, we should have something like this in our web page. So let's add style to our name line. First thing, I'm going to select our name line by our class name. And inside of this, I want the position of this to be relative because we're going to change the left and right values in our animation later. So after this, let's make the display flex again. We use justify content, space around. We want some padding, let's say 150 pixels and 0 for the sides. And let's have some style for our items inside of our name line. So let's make the color of them to be our fade color, which we have defined in the top. And let's say we want them to be bold. So we use our font weight and make this bold. Now we should have this kind of thing going on. And we can have actually some font size here to make them a little bigger. Yes, this is better. And for the animation, here we're going to use our keyframes, of course, in the first place. And here for the name, let's say we want our animation name to be divider. And we're going to have one in the 0% and another one in 100%. And here we're going to change two values, left one and right one. In the first place, we want our left one to be minus 50 pixels and our right to be 0. And we want the opposite thing in the 100%. So we want our left to be 0 and our right to be minus 50 pixels. Now let's come here and add our animation right here. So the name is going to be divider. The duration, let's say we want this to be in 1 second. We want is in out for our timing function. We don't want any delay here. We want this to be infinite going. The direction that we want is alternate, and the fill mode is going to be forwards. Now, if I go to here, nothing happens because we don't have this right. So this should be working. Yes, this is kind of animation that we wanted in our design. Now let's go on and build our next 3 parts and sections which are similar to our second section. And we're going to type in our index.html the same class names for our second section. So we can reuse our class names and make our codes to be a little smaller. So here we need to have section with the class name of info-container. And inside of this, we're going to have one image. And after this, we're going to have some text inside our paragraph. Let's say 50 words right here. And if I give this some image in assets, we want our HTML logo, for example, you can see that we have this right here. And if I duplicate this 3 times, we're going to have the same thing 3 times repeated. And here we can change our values, and let's move this one to the other side. So we're going to have one image in the right, one image in the left, another right, and another left. And let's add our description of image right here, which here is our HTML logo. In this one, we're going to have our CSS and our CSS logo. And here, let's say we have our JS and our JavaScript logo. And we can have all of this in different images. But you see, these are not the same size that we have with our laptop. So let's change the size of these, and we can have our class name to add to here. And let's say we want this to be info-image class name. So I'm gonna copy this and put this here and here. And in our style, let's come to here in after our info container. We're going to have our info-image class name right here. And let's make the width to be 250 pixels. Now, if we check, you see that we have different size for this image and different sizes for all these 3 images. Now let's go to next part, which is the cards that we have and we can show to our customers and viewers in our website. So for doing that, in our HTML, we're going to have section with the class name of cards-container. And here inside of this, we're going to have some div with the class name of card. And inside of this again, we're going to have some h2, which is, let's say, we are going to sell some tutorials. So this is tutorial 1. And after our heading, we want some line here. After this, we're going to have an ordered list with, let's say, 4 items inside of it, which all is going to be item. And after this, in the last, let's say, we have a little description inside of our paragraphs. Let's say we want this to have 18 words here. And after this, let's say we want some call to action button right here. And let's say this says click to buy. And this is not going to be shown very good right here, but we're going to fix that in our CSS. But let's say we have 3 of these cards in our website. So we're going to have 3 of them, tutorial 2 and tutorial 3. And let's jump to our CSS and code our styles. So first, let's select our cards container and display that to flex again. And we want justify content to be spaced evenly, and our padding, let's say we want 50 pixels for the top and bottom and 500 pixels for the sides. So it shrinks this to be a little more in the center. After this, let's select our card, and here let's give this some width of maybe 200 pixels here, a height of maybe 400 pixels, some border to divide it from the background. Let's say we want this to be in 1 pixel solid, and the color that we want, maybe we are going to use this fade color that we define in the top, and we're going to have some padding, let's say 20 pixel here, and we want all of the things that we have inside of our card to be displayed in the center, so we use text align and center right here. And let's have some border radius, so our card display a little better in the borders. 10 pixel is good. Now you can see we have this kind of cards going all along our design. And why these are not in the same line, let's see. Yes, because we don't have S right here. Now we should see something like this. And now let's style inside of our cards so we can have better looking card. Here, let's say we have our cards child, and we're going to have some margin for all of them. Let's say 80 pixel for the top and bottom and 0 for the sides. And let's make the list style to be none, so we don't have those dots in our style. And now let's style our bottom right here. So first we're going to have some class name for this. So we're going to use our class name of simple button right here, and we're going to pass this class name for all of our buttons. So now if we go to our CSS and select our button right here, we can give this some background. Let's say we want our background to be the same base thing that we have. Let's say we want to have our border to be 1 pixel solid and fade. We want some padding, of course, 10 pixel for the top and bottom and 30 pixel for the sides. And let's make the font size to be 1.2. RAM to be a little larger, and let's say we want to have some transition because we're going to add our hover effect on top of our button. So we want to target all of our properties, and the timing function, let's say it's is, and we want this to be in 0.3 seconds. Now let's add our hover effect for our button. So here we're going to add hover, and let's close this, and let's say when we in hover mode, we want our background to be in our light text color. We want the color of our text to be in the base. We want our cursor to be pointer, and let's say we're going to have some box shadows, which is not going to move anything. We're going to have 15 pixel of blur, and the color, let's say we set this to the fade again. And now if we check, you see that we have this thing going on. And if we add a little more space for our card, let's say we want to have this in 430 pixels, you can see that this is going to be shown very good. But we can have this to be in this style and not all three in the same mode. So we can have select this second one and give this button, for example, another ID, because you know that our ID's priority is above our class, and what we define in ID is going to be override what was in the class. So let's say we have the ID to be, let's say, active. And here in our CSS, if I select that ID, I can make the background again to be in the light text and the color of my text to be in the base color that we have defined. So if we check here, you can see now we have this thing, and when we hover, only the box shadow effect coming and going. But this one is going to change the color too. And now let's say after this, we're going to have some input so user can give his or her email, so we can give them whatever that we want, for example, some offers in our tutorials or other things. So for doing that, we're going to come to our HTML, of course, and here after our section, we're going to use our form tag here. We don't need action because we're not going to make that form work. We're only designing the UI and front end. So here we're going to have two inputs here. The first one is going to be in the type of email. Again, we don't need this name and ID. And the second input is in the type of submit. So we're going to use this one, and the value is going to be submit. And we're going to have this kind of thing shown in our design. And because this is kind of button, we can use the same class name of button that we have defined for our cards to use here too. So you can see this is as same as this one that we can reuse again. And for this one, let's come to our CSS. And here, let's say we want to select this by our attribute selectors, which if you don't know, I have a link in the description and card coming up in the corner that you can go and see and learn all about this type of selectors. So here we're going to use our type attribute to be email. And let's say here we want our background to be again in the light text. Let's say we want some padding here. Again, we can have the same 10 pixel and 30 pixel going on. Let's make font size to be 1.2 rem, and color of our input should be some dark thing. We have here our dark text. Let's say we want the width to be 500 pixel here. And now if we check, you can see that we have this thing. But pay attention that this border is not the same as this one. So we need to change the type of our border. And to do that, we're going to simply type border dash style and make this solid right here. Now you can see this is as same as our buttons and solid and one color in all along of our form and all four sides. Now let's select our form element here. Make this display be flex, justify content to be center, and let's say maybe we should have some padding so we can see bottom to 50 pixels and we don't want anything for the sides. Now we should have this kind of thing that we can write our email right here, and pay attention that if it's not valid email, if I type on submit, this is going to give us some error. So we should have it to be in email form. So if I add this and test.com, you can see now if I click, it's going to be no error, but because we don't have any backend or handling this form, it's not gonna work in a good way. So after this, let's say we have our footer. So of course, we're going to have this in our HTML, type our footer element right here. Inside of this, let's say we have simple line in the top. Then we have our paragraph, which here we're going to write our copyright text that we want to hear, and we can give this some anchor tag and have this to go to other page to show all of our things that we want our viewers to know. And after this, let's say we have some div here. We don't need any class name for that. And inside of this, let's say we have anchor tag and image inside of anchor tag, so it should be clickable. And we want 3 of these, and the source for this, the first one, let's say you have any connection and contacting ways you're going to load right here. Let's say we have one with YouTube, another one to be, let's say, WhatsApp, and the last one, let's say we want this to be Instagram. And you can write links of them right here. And these are going to be YouTube logo, WhatsApp logo, and Instagram logo. And if we come here, you can see that we got this, but not in a good way. So let's style this one too. And for doing that, first let's select our footer, make the display of that to be flex. We want justify content to space around, but you see now we don't have this line in good way, so we're going to make our flex wrap to be wrap. Now we're going to have, if I have my align items in the center, and let's say our font size 1.2 rem, and here we can change the other values. Let's say here we're going to change our line and our image. So here let's say we want this width to be 70% and have some margin, maybe 2% on the top and bottom and 15% in the sides. So now if we come here, you can see that we have this line right here as perfect as we want. And for the image, we can have, let's say, width of 30 pixel, and after this, margin of 10 pixel. Now, if we come here again, you can see that we have this, and if I add margin bottom of, let's say, 20 pixels here, you can see now we have this kind of footer right here, and we finished our modern learn programming website, and we have this kind of animation divider right here, these cards, these texts, and this kind of input, our footer and our hero type of background and landing page right here, which has this effect on top of it, and it can be scrolled with the text on the top of it. And we have this other page that we haven't created, but we have created the navigation for that. I hope that this video be helpful, and I'll be thankful if you like and leave a comment and subscribe to the channel.